What I have found is that when we're disconnected from God, we're disconnected in other areas of our life also. We find ourselves, because we are disconnected from God, we find ourselves also struggling in our relationships. And that might be why 1 out of every 2 marriages ends up in divorce in a period of about 6 months, because they don't have a relationship with God. They don't know how to have a relationship with one another. Many people, we refer to God as our Father, and some people struggle with that because they didn't have a good relationship with their natural father. So then they don't know how to respond and react to God when He comes to them as a Father. We find ourselves, and we become disconnected from God. We find ourselves beginning to miss church. It started out just missing every so often. Now we find ourselves missing more and more. At first it bothered us when we missed church, but it doesn't seem to bother us anymore. Why? Because we become disconnected. We used to look forward to spending time with God, but now we just don't have time. When we become disconnected, we find ourselves going back to some of the things that God delivered us from and not feeling bad about it. At one time we were obedient and did what the man of God said, did what the leader said. But when we become disconnected, we develop an attitude, I'm grown, I can do my own thing. I'm 3 times 7, I'm 21 years old, I'm grown, I can do my own thing. And I tell the people, go on with your grown self. We used to, when we were connected to God, we used to hear God's voice. And not only hear God's voice, but we adhere to what His voice was telling us to do. But once we became disconnected from God, we began to develop the ability to tune Him out. Because I believe even when we are, listen to me, Maisha, I believe even when we are disconnected from Him, He is still trying to talk to us. When we are disconnected from Him, He's still trying to speak to us. When we are disconnected, He's still trying to say, my daughter, my son, come on back home. But we developed the ability. We began to have selective hearing. When my children were young, they knew if they wanted to get something from Dad, go ask him when he's watching TV. Because I would get so engrossed in the program that I was watching. They would come and ask me and I'd tell them, yeah, go ahead. And then when the program was over, I forgot what I told them they could do. You hear Stephanie laughing. She knows I'm telling the truth. But that's what we do with God. We begin to pick and choose what we want to hear. That's what we do when we're disconnected. But when we are connected from Him, we're trying to hear every word that He says. Because we want to do the things that are right. Listen, all we have to do is look at the lives of these kings that I was talking about earlier. And we can see the disadvantages of being disconnected from God. They weren't bad men. They all started out walking with God. But somewhere along the way they became disconnected. Some were able to become reconnected. But some died disconnected from God. So what are you saying, Pastor? I'm encouraging you today to stay connected to God. Listen, we need Him now more than ever before. Be like Paul. Make up your mind that I'm not going to let anything or anyone separate me from the love of God. I'm going to stay connected. We got to stay connected to the power source. God is our power source. I'm looking over here, Maisha, running that video camera. But you know that camera would not run if you follow that camera and go behind Maisha. You'll notice that something's going on back there, because if you look at the wall, that camera is plugged into the wall. It's plugged into the power source. And if she would unplug that plug, that camera would go off. Well, many times us being connected to God is just like that. He is our power source. He's the one that gives us the ability to do the things that we can do. And listen, when we are connected, when we are plugged into Him, we can do great things. But we have to understand that because He is our power source, that it is in Him that we live, we move, we have our being. We can do nothing without Him. I don't care how much education you have. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what your job titles are. All of that is not if we are not connected to Him. Oh, God. We got to stay connected, saints. And one thing I found out, we got to stay connected to each other.
Man.
We got to really stay connected to each other. Listen to me. We are, regardless of what Cain said after slaying his brother Abel, we are our brother's keepers. It's our responsibility, like Minister Smith said today. Check up on our brothers and sisters. Call them. Let them know you're concerned about them. They expect the pastor, they expect the co-pastor to call. But it means it's just something different about when someone else calls. Makes a big difference. Stay connected to one another. Let one another know that you're loved. When we don't see our brothers and sisters, call them. Find out where they're at. You're not trying to get into business, but you're just trying to let them know you're concerned. Stay connected. Stay connected. And listen, as far as the church is concerned, people say, well, I can live saved without being a member of a church. And that's true, but it's going to be difficult. And then you're not adhering to what the Bible tells us to do. In Hebrews it tells us, forsake not the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is. And every one of us, we need some type of covering. We need somebody that's going to be praying for us.
Right.
So you can send your money down to one of these televangelists if you want to, and that's fine. If you got extra money, I don't mind you sewing in there. But I'll tell you what, if you get sick, don't look for them to come down and pray for you. And I don't know if I stepped on anybody's toes. Some of y'all might just put something in the mail this morning. I don't know. But you need a covering. You need someone that you can physically touch, that you can pick up the phone and call, that is going to be watching over your soul. Okay? Stay connected. Stay connected. And like I said earlier, the devil's going to try everything within his power to pull us apart. He doesn't want us drawing closer to God, but he wants to put some distance in between our relationship. But you got to make up in your mind like Paul. I'm not going to let anything come between that relationship. Paul went through some stuff. He went through some stuff. And what do we go through today? Pastor, they talking about me. Pastor, they lied on me. Pastor, she stepped on my toe 5 years ago and never did beg my pardon. Y'all laugh, but that's the kind of stuff we fainting and falling out about. Ready to leave the church. Felicia's sitting over there, got something in her eye. She's rolling her eye, trying to get it out. Maisha's over here, happens to look for Felicia's way. See her rolling her eye, trying to get that speck out of her. What's she rolling her eyes at me about? Felicia ain't thinking about Maisha. She's trying to get that stuff out of her eye. But that's the kind of stuff we'll do. The enemy will allow us to see stuff like that and start acting crazy. And while God is sitting up there grieved, and the enemy is just he's having a fit, man. I wish sometimes the Lord would open up our spiritual eyes so we could see what's happening in the spirit realm. We would be amazed. So when Minister Smith brings a message like there's something going on behind the scenes in your behalf, that's what he's talking about. It's in the spirit realm. What's going on? And I'm going to say this and I'm going to close. Things that happen in the spirit realm impact what happens in the natural realm.